Welcome to Fireside Giants. My name is Alex. Today we got an interesting segment on the line, another mock draft scenario, and it's presented by Daniel Jeremiah. As we know, another analyst, big analysts, have been making some odd mocks for the Giants, and a lot of them have been with pass rushers. A very interesting pass rush narrative for the Giants, and it matches up actually with what they're doing. You know, the Giants have been sending Joe Judge, Patrick Graham, a lot of their big, more, high-profile front office people to evaluate some of these pass rushers like Gregory Rousseau, like Jalen Phillips, like Jason Owe from Penn State. So the question is, where are they going? Who is worth drafting? And is taking a pass rusher 11, does that even make sense? Daniel Jeremiah kind of goes off the beaten path with this mock draft of his, and I like that about what he does because the big names saying Giants going pass rush at 11, it actually concerns me because you have, let's say, 4 quarterbacks going in, the top 5, top 6 picks of the draft. And it kind of presents the problem, if there's going to be an elite talent dropping to 11 for the Giants, whether it be Jalen Waddle, Devonta Smith, Micah Parsons, Rashawn Slater, if any of these guys drop, you should not. And please let the football gods hear me or the Giants front office hear me. Do not reach for a pass rusher who has 0 production or has limited production in college. Jalen Phillips, I could see the argument. I could see the argument for drafting him, but the concussion issues scare me. I don't like drafting players with injury histories, especially a guy who's 1 concussion away from his football career ending immediately. Let's not go down that path. Let's avoid that. Don't want to deal with 1 concussion, the guy's done, and a first-round pick out the window. That's a mistake. Gregory Rousseau got most of his sacks from the zero tech, interior pass rusher position. He's a lanky. He has a lot of upside in terms of athleticism, but I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm totally convinced he can be a day 1 impact player, especially at 11 when the Giants have better options on the board. Push Gregory Rousseau off into the future. He might drop to the second round at this point. I think he might drop there. I don't want the Giants going down that route. Now, let's say Azeez Ojulari. I like him. I think if the Giants traded back to 15, that would make sense for me. I like him as a prospect and a player. I think he has a lot of upside, really good motor, some decent pass rush moves to develop there. Kwity Paye, he's probably the first pass rusher to go off the board for the most part out of Michigan. Do I like Kwity Paye? Yeah, I love Kwity Paye. Kwity Paye is a physical, he's strong, some of the strongest hands in the draft from defensive prospect, on the line at least. He has decent pass rush. He's a good bull rush. He's quick off the line of scrimmage. I like Kwity Paye. He doesn't fit our scheme, though. That's the problem. I like him as a player. You scout the player, not the team. And I like Kwity Paye. But he doesn't fit our scheme. We play a 3-4, a lot of disguise coverages. And I'm not totally convinced that Kwity Paye would come here and fit our scheme unless the Giants are going to play more, nickel packages where they're utilizing those 5-tech outside, or not outside linebackers, or 5-tech pass rushers. And you have guys like Leonard Williams and, Kwity Paye that could play 5-tech outside. Then you have Dexter Lawrence, let's say Austin Johnson or Danny Shelton, who can play those 2-eye, those 2-techs, interior defensive tackles. So I like those concepts. I like the concept of, those nickel packages where you can get those big bodies in there, Kwity Paye fitting those mold, but they're not playing nickel package every single play. They're not playing the nickel package maybe 50% of plays, maybe 20, 25%. The Giants love their outside linebackers. They love to drop outside linebackers back into coverage like Carter Coughlin we saw a lot last year, and they love to use them as spies. Kwity Paye is a pure pass rusher. I don't see us going that direction. So let's already roll out 3 guys. Kwity Paye, don't see it. Doesn't really fit our scheme that well. Gregory Rousseau, overrated. Not a lot of production as an outside linebacker. Actually, none at all as an outside linebacker. A lot of his sacks came as zero tech interior over the nose tackle, which isn't going to happen at the NFL level for a skinny guy like that. Let's say, Azeez Ojulari, I like him in a trade back scenario. But again, elite talent on the board. I'm not trading back if there's elite talent on the board. And then you have Jalen Phillips, who's 1 concussion away from his career ending. That don't want to mess with that at all. So those are the primary pass rushers that we're talking about. There's a couple guys in the second round I like Joseph Asai out of Texas, Quincy Roche out of Miami. I like him too. There's some pretty decent players in the second round, and Jason Owe, of course, from Penn State, who ranked off the charts in terms of athleticism, but has pretty much no production in college. I love the athletic nature of some of these players, but I'm not spending the 11th overall pick. Now, this should be the mantra for Giants fans right now. we should not, I'm not going to speak for you guys, but we should not be spending the 11th overall pick on athletic upside with no college production. I want college production. I want proof, hard proof that this guy is performing, and athletic upside. It's not that much to ask at 11, especially with 4 quarterbacks off the board in the top 10 picks. Players like Micah Parsons dropping, Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle. But that leads me to the next section of this, and that is Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft. And who does he take in this mock draft? And it's no other than Devonta Smith out of Alabama. He believes the Giants aren't done injecting playmakers into this unit. And now a lot of people will ask, offensive line, what is going on there? We need protection for Daniel Jones. We need more time in the pocket for him. We need to make sure he's good to go. Otherwise, these weapons are for naught. And I agree with that 100%, by the way. I think that, the Giants addressing the offensive line in the draft is essential. So this is what Daniel Jeremiah said in relation to his pick at 11 with the Giants for Devonta Smith. He says, even after the Giants signing of Kenny Golladay, I still get the sense Big Blue wants more weapons. Smith is the best route runner in the draft. Now, what makes this so interesting to me is that while the Giants are sending guys to go evaluate pass rushers and this and that, Daniel Jeremiah is sitting here telling us that he gets the sense the Giants are actually looking at, playmakers. Devonta Smith, a Z receiver who can come in and immediately make an impact day one, open up the field for Daniel Jones. I think he's a phenomenal selection if the Giants want to go that route. And, let's talk about Devonta Smith for a second, who's one of the most illustrious college receivers in history. Over 13 games last year, he tallied 1,856 yards and 23 touchdowns through the air, including 1 on the ground. Some coin Smith as the best receiver in college history, but at 6'1" and 175 pounds, people have concerns about his size. That's the problem, the size factor. People say if he was 6'1", 210 pounds, or even 190 pounds, we're not having this conversation. We're not having this conversation. He's the lock to be a top 10, top 5 pick even. Now, I will argue with you right now to say that I don't give a crap about Devonta Smith's size. I think he actually utilizes his slender nature, his size, to his advantage. And if you ever watch him on those wide receiver screens, go watch his film. Go watch his wide receiver screens. He gets a ton of yards off wide receiver screens from the slot and the Z. Now, what is so special about that? He gets a lot of yards from that. What does that mean? With his size, he utilizes that slenderness, that very thin frame to bend to the edge. He gets around the edge, and he has unbelievable balance when turning that corner around the edge. And he's so hard to stop in the open field because he's so quick, so slender, his long strides, you can't keep up to him. He has good speed, some of the best hands in college, if not the best hands in college. And his catch radius is absurd. And I would argue he's the best route runner in the draft class. There's a couple things Anthony and I talk about all the time. And one of them is the translation of skill sets to the NFL. One of them is route running. Route running is one of the skill sets that translates best to the NFL. And I think that's something that Smith has down pat. I think the Giants have an awesome opportunity to do this exactly, to draft Devonta Smith, and then next year they can take the out in Sterling Shepard's contract. I think it's just about $4 million in dead money. They save about $10 million, or maybe a little bit less. They save a couple $1 million in that scenario by cutting Sterling Shepard. They have their next big-time receiver on the outside who's probably going to have a better career than Shep in Devonta Smith. And that's kind of how I see this unfolding. The Giants can save some cash next year by cutting Sterling Shepard. I love Shep, by the way. I don't want to cut him, but it's just business. Football's a business, man. You can't really do much about it. And Devonta Smith has a crazy upside to him. Crazy upside with his route running and incredible hands as well. And I don't think his lack of size is going to haunt him at the end of the next level. As a Z receiver, that essentially means he's lining up a couple feet off the line of scrimmage. And that allows him to avoid press coverage, allows him to get better release packages, better releases off the LOS. And I think that's what I'm really excited about when it comes to Devonta Smith. So that excites me. I mean, just think about this. This grouping. Kenny Golladay as your wide receiver 1. Saquon Barkley, arguably the best running back in football, as your running back 1. You have Sterling Shepard, who will be here in 2021. You have Devonta Smith. You have John Ross, you have Darius Slayton, you have Alex Mack, you have Dante Pettis, and, you have C.J. Board, if you want to throw him in there. You have one of the best skill, units in the league. And you have Evan Ingram and Kyle Rudolph. Don't want to forget about them, too. That's where I'm looking at this draft particularly. I think that this draft is deep enough in the offensive line category that the Giants can walk away with Devonta Smith and a starting right guard on day 1 and 2. And we just interviewed Quinn Miners from Wisconsin Whitewater University. I don't know if you guys have watched the interview, but go check that out. It's really, really great. We learned a lot from him. And he's a mauler, man. That guy has a chip on his shoulder. He wants to prove everybody wrong. He's a D3 player who's getting in consideration as a day 2 talent and a day 1 starter in the NFL. The guy went to the Senior Bowl. Not only did he kick the hell out of the Senior Bowl, and those are D1 top premium talents in the NFL draft, he kicked the shit out of them. Excuse my language. He kicked the crap out of them. And not only did he do that, but in fact, he actually transitioned to center on a whim, never played center in his life before, transitioned to center, ended up developing in a literally a couple days, and ended up starting the Senior Bowl at center, ended up kicking ass and beating down some of the best talents in defensive tackle in the country coming out of college. And he dominated, man. He was an absolute stud, and he learned that position. He reminds me a lot of Nick Gates. He can play multiple positions. He thinks that playing every interior line position is important. He wants to play center and guard. That's his goal. I think that's what's huge about Quinn Miners. I think if he dropped to the 3rd round, he'd be a home run pick for the Giants because they could kick Nick Gates out to right guard if they wanted to, put Miners at center. They could do the opposite. The guy is an absolute stud. He said he lost a little bit of weight to get a little bit more agile. He can fit multiple schemes. He can fill our power gap scheme that Jason Garrett likes to run in those pulling guards. He's athletic enough to do it. Very, very quick. I watched a video of him training with Rashawn Slater. He looked his equal. This is a guy who has potential. This is a guy who's not even mocked as a day 2 for the most part. He's maybe a day 2. He's a round 3 projection. Round 2 maximum height. So, when we talk about players available in the 2nd round, you still have Wyatt Davis, you got Ben Cleveland, even Samuel Cosmi, a right tackle out of Texas, could fall. Elijah Vera Tucker, I don't think he'll fall, but you never know. There's a ton of great talent, guys. This is a deep offensive line class. The only reason I think Penei Sewell, I think Penei Sewell is probably a bona fide starting offensive tackle, all-pro potential day 1. I think in any draft he'd be up there. But the only reason I think Rashawn Slater is as high as he is because there's a lack of talent at that position and the need right now. And, there's no one really big else around him. Like last year, the tackle position was flush full of talent. But I think that Rashawn Slater has the athletic upside to be an absolute stud. He's strong, fast, intelligent. But he lacks a lot of tape. He didn't play last year. So he's being mocked very high. I think in a normal draft last year, he'd probably be the 5th tackle off the board. Keep that in mind. The Giants don't want to take a leap of faith when maybe they don't need to. I think he would be a fantastic pick. I think they if he was on the board, he'd be a very good consideration. But I like this draft for the Giants because they find a playmaker in Devonta Smith, but they also find their offensive guard in the 2nd round. In my opinion, that's the way that I would go with it. But what if you consider, Devonta Smith and Jalen Waddle? Where do you go if both of those guys are on the board, theoretically? Let me know in the comments because I'm curious to see what you guys think. If there was, Jalen Waddle, Devonta Smith are on the board, who do you go? I think I go Devonta Smith. I think Jalen Waddle's the better prospect, but I think Devonta Smith has better upside. It's hard to say that without second-guessing myself because I think that they're both so freaking good. They're so good. Jalen Waddle, the injury's a little bit worrisome. I don't think it's going to be a big problem, though. I think he's going to get over it. But his route tree is pretty solid. He's a solid route runner. He is a burner. He's one of the fastest receivers in this draft class. He beat Henry Ruggs in a race last year. So I'm looking at Jalen Waddle. I think that he could be equally, if not better, than Devonta Smith and vice versa. Yeah, I don't know, guys. I think I just stumped myself with that one. But let me know who you think you would take because the more you sit there and think about it, the harder it gets to justify taking either over one another. I think they're both such elite talents. I think based on I think I would go Devonta Smith just because of how much attention he commanded, his statistics, and the fact that defenses schemed around him to stop him and he still crushed them. I'm thinking back to the national championship game when he absolutely railed Ohio State. So that was an interesting, just interesting factor to bring up because I think he is that good. So, guys, let me know what you guys think about this interesting mock draft where Devonta Smith takes precedent here and the Giants go with another playmaker because I kind of like this scenario. I really do. So let me know what you guys think, and obviously an offensive guard in the 2nd round would be nice. Hopefully Anthony will be back with us next week. If you're up to this point 15 minutes in, we have a special guest on with you guys next week. I'm finalizing a date and time to bring on Ifedi Odenigbo. Odenabo, rather. He just came over from the Vikings. His marketing manager hit me up. He wants us to do an interview with him, and we're going to interview him, get him on the channel. We'll get some questions from you guys to ask. So that'll be really cool. A Giants player on here very soon for you guys, just prior to the draft. Hope we can get a couple prospects in the coming days as well. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and we've got a lot of awesome stuff on the way, my friends. I hope you have an awesome week, and we'll catch you guys on the next one. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube below. Turn on notifications for Spotify and Apple. Much love as always. We'll catch you guys on the next episode.